It was well past midnight when the power cut out. I had been up working on an article, the only illumination coming from my laptop screen glowing in the dark office. As the computer sputtered off, I was plunged into inky blackness. Sighing, I stood and shuffled carefully through the dark toward the supply closet. The old floorboards creaked under my footsteps as I felt along the shelves for a flashlight. My spine tingled uneasily. Without lights, the house felt different. Primal. The shadows deep and impenetrable. I froze as a faint shuffling sound arose from the hallway. The noise was subtle yet unmistakable in the stillness. Something was moving out there in the darkness. My chest tightened. I stood motionless, every sense straining. Had I imagined it? But no, the subtle scuffling came again, slightly closer this time. It was repetitive, almost rhythmic, steadily advancing down the hall toward my office. Icy fingers clutched my heart. This was no house settling or branches at the window. Something alive was creeping closer through the gloom. My hand closed around the flashlight and I flicked it on with shaking fingers. A puny circle of light illuminated the closet doorway. I swept it back and forth across my dark office. Nothing. Yet that relentless shuffling grew louder just beyond the doorway now. Steeling my nerves, I cautiously stepped out into the hall, flashlight held before me like a ward against evil. The dim glow only emphasized the thick shadows pressing in around me. I walked slowly toward the living room where the noises seemed to originate. Hello? My voice wavered, shattering the silence. The shuffling stopped abruptly. The ensuing stillness felt smothering. I wished it would resume, just so I'd know where it was. Unable to bear the dread anymore, I hurried to the front door and slipped outside into the night's soothing embrace. Out here, the darkness felt natural. Crickets chirped sleepily in the bushes. Wind chimes tinkled from my neighbor's porch, glittering faintly in the moonlight. Warm yellow light glowed from their windows, electricity intact just down the street apparently. Nothing sinister lurked out here. Feeling foolish, I sat down on the steps to wait for the power to return. Just a squirrel in the attic or something, I told myself firmly. I'd let my imagination run away in the dark. After about 20 minutes, brightness suddenly flooded the windows from inside. The power was back. Laughing in relief, I went back inside, flipping on lights with gusto. I did a full sweep of the house, but found nothing amiss. Settling onto the couch with a book, I let the familiar comfort of routine return. The darkness had played tricks on me, that's all. I pushed the bizarre incident from my mind and soon drifted off, curled up under a blanket. I snapped awake some time later, unsure what had roused me. Darkness enveloped the room once more, the power must have blinked out again. As I lay there groggily, that subtle shuffling arose from somewhere down the hall. I shot bolt upright, blanket clutched to my chest. It was back. Flying to the light switch, I flipped it uselessly up and down to no avail. Only the moonlight glowing faintly through the curtains illuminated the living room. The rest of the house was pitch black and formless. And something was in it with me. Heart hammering, I backed against the wall, ears strained for the direction of the noises. They seemed to echo from multiple places now, here in the living room one moment, then in a back bedroom the next. Multi-directional. Impossible to track. I thought of fleeing outside again, but never make it to the door blindly with that thing roaming the halls. A nervous giggle escaped my lips. Maybe I should try talking to it? Introduce myself? It's a pleasure to meet you. I called out, voice high-pitched and near hysterics. I'm Christine, nice to make your acquaintance, Mr. Shufflefoot. A floorboard creaked directly behind me in response. Barely stifling a scream, I leapt away from the wall and spun to face it. But only empty air greeted me. Adrenaline flooded my veins. It had been right there, toying with me. The fun and games need to stop, sir. My voice shook as I addressed the darkness. I'm going to leave now. Please leave me be. The next creak came from right beside me, making me yelp in terror. I cowered in the center of the room now, clutching my blanket like a shield. Fine then. I would wait it out here and not react to any more noises until sunrise. Easier said than done, as the shuffling soon resumed, slithering wetly across the floor all around me. Sometimes it came from 2 different directions at once, as if the thing was circling. But I just squeezed my eyes shut, praying for daylight. After what felt like hours, pale light seeped in through the windows as dawn broke. The last echoes of shuffling faded away. Shakily, I rose to my feet and checked the hallway. Nothing. Whatever had been lurking there was gone with the night. I laughed uneasily, exhausted but relieved. Hallucinations from sleep deprivation, obviously. I would drink some strong coffee and forget this whole silly ordeal. But as I sipped my morning brew, I couldn't shake the lingering unease coiled in my gut. Something about those noises had felt different than ordinary nocturnal sounds. Primal. Alive. And intent on terrorizing me. Over the next few weeks, life returned to normal. I stopped working late into the night. I kept lights on in every room now, unwilling to be plunged into darkness again. The power stayed on, and no more shuffling arose. Soon I let my guard down, chuckling about that crazy night. Clearly just an overactive imagination fueled by darkness, isolation, and too much work. Boiler pipes knocking, I reasoned to myself. Mice scurrying about. Then one night, I once again found myself alone up late watching a movie. The house enveloped in shadows around the flickering TV. When the closing credits ended abruptly, so did the TV's glow, casting the room into blackness. No. I lunged for a light switch, but this time nothing happened when I flipped it. A fuse had blown. Sweat broke out across my skin as shuffling immediately started up down the hall. It was back. This time I knew it was no delusion. Something sinister lurked in my home that was only active when darkness fell. Grabbing my phone, I hurried to the back door, making sure not to look behind me. That incessant shuffling echoed from directly at my heels, but I refused to turn. Fumbling with the lock, I got outside and slammed the door shut. Finally, I did look back once safely across the lawn, staring up at my darkened house. A hollow dread nauseated me. How many nights had this entity been creeping around while I slept upstairs, circling, observing? What did it want? Suddenly one of the second-floor windows slid slowly open. A pale shape began to slither out, elongating impossibly. I glimpsed spindly appendages tipped with gnarled talons feeling their way down the outside wall. A strangled cry escaped my throat. I turned and ran under the moonlight, not stopping until I reached the glowing lights of town. Only then did I feel safe enough to call my brother. I could never spend another night in that house alone. Over the next few weeks, I only returned to pack my things under heavy daylight with others by my side. We never caught sight of the entity, but I could feel it watching sullenly from some hidden crevice. My brother hired a paranormal investigator to analyze the phenomena, but they were unable to determine the nature of the thing I had encountered crawling through the shadows. Some malevolent spirit tied to the land itself, they theorized. I planned to have the house torn down. But the image still haunts me, that pale writhing shape emerging from my bedroom window into the night, guided only by the shuffling noises it used to stalk me through the darkness. No matter where I go now, nights still plunge me into instinctual dread. I lay frozen, ears straining for any subtle shuffles signifying that an unseen presence has joined me in the shadows once again. But as long as I don't turn my back, as long as I resist that primal urge to spin around and confront the source of the sounds, I can make it to dawn unscathed. The darkness cannot hurt me as long as I do not look behind and acknowledge the evil that dwells there. For in my heart, I know the thing is still out there, lurking just out of sight, patiently shuffling through the gloom, waiting for the day I finally turn to face the terror at my back.